All right, welcome back once again to our HTML training. This is a web design training that we're giving, and you can follow anytime you want. Feel free to ask your question and make your reactions. Now, please, before we continue, I want to plead with you. The only support you can give us to continue bringing good content like this to you is to like, comment, share our videos. Let have more people to watch this video. All right, so if you did that for us, we're going to be very grateful, super grateful. Okay, let's jump into our class today we are going to consider another topic in HTML, which is elements. All right, HTML elements. I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call this elements.html. all right, so I'll close this and I'll close this, and then I'm going to cut off this, relaunch. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate things here so that you understand what we mean by HTML element. So we have different types of elements, and every element has a default display value depending on the type that we're talking about. So I want you to pay close attention so that if you want to manipulate the web DOM, you should be able to understand how each element is displayed by default. That will enable you to manipulate whatever you want to manipulate. So I'm going to quickly put in something here. I'm going to type in div. Don't worry, later on I'm going to explain. And then this div, I'm going to use the style attribute. The style attribute, I'm going to use the border, and then I'm just going to use 1 pixels solid black. All right, so I'm going to save this and then refresh. You see just a line. So in this div, I'm going to, let me just put a paragraph, and I'm going to use lorem text. So I'll save this and I refresh. Okay, I purposely added the border line so that you can understand when I start explaining. All right. Okay, so in between this paragraph, I'm just going to choose random text, and I'm probably going to use some elements like strong. All right, so I'm going to use strong here, and I'll cut this word, put it inside the strong element, and I'm going to save it, then refresh. So you see here it is bold, and also I'm going to use the span element. I'm going to use the span elements, and I'm going to cut this text and then pass it inside the span element. Oh, I made a mistake. It's not spa, it is called span. So I'm going to add n. That's good. So when I save this, I refresh. Actually, the span is not going to show us anything. Okay, but then I will come to the span and pass the same style attributes. So I'm going to copy this, then pass it. Don't worry about the style attribute, I'm going to explain that later on. So I will refresh, and then we can see, let me make this, expand this, so we can see right here the border is here, while the first border covers everything. I think this cooled now. So this will now guide us to explain what elements, the two types of elements are, depending on how they are being displayed on the web browser. First, we have what we call the block level elements. And this block level elements first occupies the full width of the screen. No matter how large the screen may be, it occupies the full width of the screen. And you can see that our div element is a block level element. Why? Because it occupies from the start to the end of the screen. All right, even though we may have, okay, let me reduce the number of text that we have here. Let me reduce this. Okay, then I refresh, I increase. You see we have few text in here, but the border still covers the full width of the screen. That's what we call block level elements. And I'm going to show us some examples of block level elements, but the two that we have used right now is the paragraph element is a block level element, div element is a block level element. So if I copy this style attribute and then I put it on this paragraph, let's see what is going to happen. You see, the paragraph also will take its own border and it occupies the full width. And this shows us that the paragraph is residing inside the div element. So that's what we call the block level element. The second type of element is the inline element. Now let me take off this so that we can see how the inline element works. The inline element doesn't occupy the full space or the full width of the screen. Rather, it occupies as much space as necessary depending on the contents that it contains. All right. So an example of block level element is span. So this span that I used here, this and what is the open span? Okay, look at it here. All right, you can see the open span here and then the close span tag. And I assign this style attribute, and you see that the style attribute occupies only the space for the text in between. Look at the text that we have in between from here to here. So that's what we call inline elements. Now, inline element allows us to give some styling or just to style a portion of text or other elements in our HTML. For instance, now I can decide, okay, here I can decide to maybe put a background color. I can decide to put a background color of red to this. And you see that only this portion will carry the background color. That is one thing that inline element helps us to do. And so many other stylings that you can apply to an inline element, and it will not affect all the content that you have, which is quite different from block level elements. So I've told us before that we can use W3 School as our resource material, and in this I'm going to show us HTML elements so that there you can see examples of inline and block level elements. So these are examples of block level elements. We have address, article, aside, field sets, HR, header. We have div that we've used here, footer, form. All these are examples of block level elements, and these ones below are examples of inline element. So you can visit this website, and then from there you gather more and more information about the two types of elements, block level and inline element. And don't forget, these two types of elements have their unique display value, that is default display value. By default, block level occupies the full width of a page. By default, inline occupies only the space that is occupied, that it occupies. All right. And then you can use CSS to manipulate the size of these two elements. So that is it. You can feel free to ask your questions. If there's anywhere that I didn't explain very well, feel free to ask your questions. And please don't forget to support us by sharing, commenting, and liking our video. Thank you, and I'll see you in our next class. Bye.